A secluded farm, hidden away, conceals a dark secret. A notorious farmer, known for his harsh treatment of animals, targets a defenseless Mustang horse, showing it no respect or care. Unbeknownst to him, this horse belongs to none other than Keanu Reeves. When the actor discovers the abuse, he intervenes, sparking a tale of justice, redemption, and the unbreakable bond between humans and animals. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Your support helps us share inspiring stories of courage and compassion. Like this one, the old farm sat on the edge of a barren plain, its weathered wooden fence barely holding together against the elements. The barn, with its peeling red paint and rusting hinges, gave off an aura of neglect. Inside, tied to a rough wooden post, stood a brown Mustang horse. His coat, once a shimmering chestnut, was now dull and streaked with mud. His ribs jutted out, evidence of long-term starvation, and his eyes, once filled with fire and freedom, were dimmed by fear and despair. The Mustang let out a low, pitiful whinny as the barn door slammed open. Heavy boots stomped across the straw-laden floor, and Jack Hendrick, the farm's owner, appeared. Jack was a large man with a permanent scowl etched on his face. Known throughout the small rural town for his harsh demeanor, he had a history of cruelty toward the animals under his care. To him, the Mustang was nothing more than a stubborn beast to break, still useless. "You're just like the others, weak," Jack growled, gripping a leather whip in his calloused hands. The Mustang flinched as Jack cracked the whip against the floor, the sound echoing through the barn. The horse shifted nervously, his hooves scraping against the ground as he strained against the rope tied tightly around his neck. Jack sneered, "You're just like the others, weak." Without hesitation, he swung the whip, its tip snapping against the Mustang's flank. The horse let out a sharp cry, his body trembling from the pain. Jack's expression twisted with satisfaction, as if the act of dominance filled some void within him. Outside the barn, hidden behind the dense shrubs that bordered the property, a local delivery driver paused mid-step. He had come to drop off a package of feed but froze at the sound of the whip and the Mustang's cries. Peeking through the cracked barn door, he watched in horror as Jack raised the whip again. The driver's face turned pale as he gripped his phone, debating whether to intervene. He knew Jack's reputation and feared retaliation, but the sight of the trembling horse made him feel sick. Gathering his courage, he snapped a quick photo of the abuse, intending to report it later. Across town, Keanu Reeves was wrapping up a long day at his countryside ranch. His Mustang horse, Apollo, had been his pride and joy for years. Rescued from an abusive owner, Apollo had been a symbol of resilience, a reminder of the strength to overcome adversity. That evening, Keanu received a call from James, his ranch caretaker. "Keanu," James said, his voice tense, "Apollo's missing." Keanu felt his chest tighten. "What do you mean, missing?" "I think someone might have taken him," James replied. "I've checked the paddocks, the trails, he's nowhere to be found, but I've got a lead." James explained that a shady farmer in the area, Jack Hendrick, had been rumored to take horses to auctions and other questionable activities. Keanu's jaw tightened as he listened. "I'll be there in a few hours," he said firmly, grabbing his keys. He couldn't shake the sinking feeling in his chest. Apollo wasn't just a horse, he was family. The thought of him in the hands of someone like Jack was unbearable. Meanwhile, the delivery driver, shaken by what he had witnessed, returned to his truck. As he started the engine, he couldn't get the image of the Mustang's trembling frame out of his mind. He made a decision, pulling out his phone and dialing the local animal rescue hotline. "I need to report something," he said, his voice shaking. "There's a Mustang being abused at Jack Hendrick's farm." The operator asked for details, and the driver described what he had seen. The conversation ended with a promise that authorities would investigate the claim. The driver didn't know it yet, but his call would set off a chain of events that would bring justice to Jack and hope to the Mustang. As the first rays of sunlight crept over the horizon, the delivery driver couldn't shake the haunting image of the abused Mustang. His restless night had been consumed by visions of the horse's trembling body, the echo of the whip, and the cruel smirk on Jack Hendrick's face. determined to ensure justice. He decided to follow up on the report he had made to the animal rescue hotline. Meanwhile, at Jack's farm, the day began as it always did, with an air of hostility and neglect. The Mustang stood tied to the same post, his body too weak to resist. Jack stormed into the barn with a bucket of water, slamming it onto the ground. In front of the horse, "Drink, you useless thing," he muttered, kicking the bucket toward the horse's hoof. The Mustang flinched, but didn't move, his eyes glassy and distant. Jack sneered, muttering to himself as he stomped out of the barn. The farmer had no idea that his actions had drawn attention that was swiftly growing. Across town, Keanu Reeves was preparing to leave for Jack's farm. His truck was loaded with essentials, and James handed him a folder containing Apollo's records and recent photographs. "If it's Jack Hendrick, we'll need proof Apollo is yours," James said, his voice firm. Keanu nodded. "We're not letting him keep Apollo. He doesn't deserve to own a single living creature." The drive to Jack's farm was tense. Keanu replayed memories of Apollo in his mind, the first day he'd seen a horse at a rescue center, the cautious steps Apollo had taken toward him, and the way the Mustang had learned to trust him. The thought of Apollo enduring abuse reignited Keanu's determination. Back at the farm, a truck with the local animal rescue team pulled into Jack's driveway. The team had acted quickly on the delivery driver's report, arriving with cameras and paperwork to document the conditions. Jack emerged from his house, visibly annoyed. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, slamming the screen door behind him. "Mr. Hendrick," one of the officers said, stepping forward, "we've received a report about animal cruelty on your property. We're here to investigate." Jack's face twisted in anger. "Animal cruelty? That's ridiculous. My animals are fine." The officer remained calm. "We'll need to inspect the barn and your animals. Please step aside." Reluctantly, Jack allowed them access. As the officers entered the barn, the stench of neglect hit them immediately. The Mustang stood tied to the post, his ribs even more pronounced in the morning light. The officers exchanged grim looks as they began documenting the scene. "This horse is in critical condition," one officer said, gently approaching the Mustang. "He needs immediate veterinary care." Jack scoffed. "He's fine, just stubborn." The officer turned to Jack, his tone firm. "Neglect and abuse are against the law. You'll need to come with us for questioning." As Jack protested, Keanu's truck rolled into the driveway. He stepped out, his presence commanding immediate attention. Jack froze, his anger momentarily replaced by confusion. "Who the hell are you?" Jack barked. Keanu ignored him, his eyes scanning the property until they landed on the barn. "Where's Apollo?" he asked, his voice calm but laced with authority. Jack sneered. "Apollo? That's my horse, not yours." Keanu's jaw tightened. "He's mine. I have the proof." He handed the folder to the officers, who began reviewing the documents. Meanwhile, Keanu walked toward the barn, his heart pounding. When he saw Apollo, his breath caught. The once proud Mustang looked broken, his body frail and his eyes dull. Keanu knelt beside him, gently stroking his mane. "I'm here, boy," he whispered. "You're safe now." Apollo let out a soft nicker, leaning into Keanu's touch, a small but unmistakable sign of recognition. The officers confirmed Keanu's ownership and informed Jack that Apollo would be confiscated immediately. Jack erupted in fury, shouting threats and insults, but it was clear his time had run out. As the officers led Jack away, Keanu stayed with Apollo, feeding him water from a small container and whispering reassurances. "You'll never have to endure this again," Keanu promised, his voice steady. As the sun climbed higher, Keanu helped the rescue team load Apollo into a trailer bound for the veterinary clinic. The journey to healing had begun, but Keanu knew there was still much to do to restore Apollo's spirit, and to ensure Jack Hendrick faced the consequences of his cruelty. The rescue trailer pulled up to the veterinary clinic, its rival marked. By the soft whinnies of Apollo from inside, Keanu Reeves stepped out of his truck, his expression a mix of relief and concern. He had spent the drive gently reassuring Apollo, his voice calm and steady as he spoke about the safety that awaited them. Veterinary staff rushed to meet them, their movements efficient yet gentle. Dr. Emily Carter, the clinic's lead veterinarian, approached Keanu. "We prepared a quiet stall for him," she said, glancing at the frail Mustang in the trailer. "We'll do everything we can." Keanu nodded. "Thank you. He's been through hell." As the staff carefully unloaded Apollo, his legs trembled under the weight of his emaciated body. His once majestic frame was now frail, his head hanging low. Keanu walked alongside him, murmuring softly, "You're safe now, buddy. No one's going to hurt you again." Apollo's ears flicked toward Keanu's voice, a faint glimmer of recognition in his dull eyes. Inside the clinic, Apollo was examined thoroughly. Dr. Carter noted the extensive signs of neglect, malnutrition, dehydration, whip marks, and inflamed skin from being tied too tightly. "He's severely malnourished," she said, her voice filled with quiet anger. "It's going to take time to get him back to health. But he's a fighter." Keanu stayed by Apollo's side, watching as the team administered for fluids and treated his wounds. The Mustang flinched at first, but with Keanu's soothing presence, he gradually relaxed. Dr. Carter smiled faintly. "He trusts you. That's going to make a huge difference." Over the next few days, Apollo's recovery became a constant effort. Keanu refused to leave the clinic, sleeping in a chair outside Apollo's stall and feeding him small amounts of hay to reintroduce him to proper nutrition. The Mustang's progress was slow but steady, and each small victory felt monumental. One morning, as Keanu entered the stall with a fresh bucket of water, he noticed something different. Apollo raised his head slightly and took a step toward him. It was shaky and hesitant, but a step nonetheless. Dr. Carter, observing from outside, grinned. "That's a good sign. He's starting to regain his strength and his will." Keanu knelt beside Apollo, his voice soft. "That's my boy. We'll get through this together." Meanwhile, news of the rescue began to spread. The delivery driver who had initially reported the abuse shared his story with local media. The tale of Keanu Reeves rescuing his beloved Mustang from cruelty captured public attention, inspiring outpourings of support for animal welfare and donations to the clinic. At the ranch, James worked tirelessly to prepare for Apollo's eventual return. He repaired fences, cleaned the stables, and ensured the paddocks were safe and welcoming. "This place will be a sanctuary for him," James told Keanu during a late-night call. "He'll have everything he needs." Keanu's determination deepened with each passing day. While he appreciated the media attention, his focus remained solely on Apollo's recovery. The Mustang had survived unimaginable cruelty, and Keanu was committed to helping him thrive once more. Weeks later, Apollo's transformation was undeniable. His coat began to regain its sheen, his movements became more confident, and the fire in his eyes returned. Dr. Carter marveled at his progress. "I've never seen a horse bounce back like this. Whatever you're doing, keep it up." Keanu smiled, his hand resting gently on Apollo's neck. "It's not just me. He's got the heart of a survivor." As Apollo neared the end of his stay at the clinic, Keanu began preparing for their journey home. The thought of bringing Apollo back to the ranch filled him with hope. He envisioned the Mustang running freely through the fields, his spirit fully restored. But Keanu also knew that their fight wasn't over. Jack Hendricks still needed to face justice, and Keanu was determined to ensure that no other animal suffered under his hand again. The day had finally arrived for Apollo to leave the clinic. The Mustang's transformation was nothing short of remarkable. His coat now gleamed with hints of its former glory, and his eyes, once dull and lifeless, sparkled with renewed vitality. Though still regaining his full strength, Apollo stood tall, his proud spirit slowly returning. Keanu Reeves arrived early that morning, his truck and trailer ready to take Apollo home. The veterinary team gathered to bid farewell to the resilient horse who had become a symbol of hope. Dr. Emily Carter approached Keanu with a clipboard of discharge instructions. "He's made incredible progress, but remember, it's still a journey. Keep him on the diet we've outlined and avoid pushing him too hard, too soon." Keanu nodded, his expression filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Dr. Carter. You and your team have done more than I could ever repay." Dr. Carter smiled. It's not every day we get a patient with such a dedicated owner. Apollo's lucky to have you. As Keanu led Apollo into the trailer, he couldn't help but feel a wave of emotion. The journey they had shared over the past weeks had been grueling, but it had also deepened their bond. "We're going home, buddy," Keanu whispered, stroking Apollo's neck. "And this time, nothing's going to take you away." The drive back to the ranch was peaceful, the countryside rolling by in golden hues under the afternoon sun. Keanu spoke softly to Apollo throughout the trip, recounting memories of their earlier days together. "You remember that first ride? It took us an hour just to get you to trust me enough to saddle up," he said with a chuckle. "But once we got going, you ran like the wind." Apollo snorted softly from the trailer as if acknowledging Keanu's words. When they arrived at the ranch, James was waiting by the gate. He waved as Keanu pulled in, his excitement evident. "Welcome home, Apollo," James called out, opening the gate to let the truck through. Keanu parked near the stable, stepping out to survey the ranch. The paddocks were pristine, the fences repaired, and the stable freshly cleaned. James had truly gone above and beyond to ensure Apollo's homecoming was perfect. "Everything looks amazing," Keanu said, shaking James's hand. "Only the best for him," James replied with a grin. "He deserves it." Apollo stepped cautiously out of the trailer, his hooves crunching against the gravel. He paused, his ears flicking forward as he took in his surroundings. Keanu led him toward the paddock, allowing him time to adjust. As they reached the open gate, Keanu removed Apollo's halter, giving him the freedom to explore. For a moment, Apollo stood still, his gaze scanning the wide-open space. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, he trotted into the paddock, his movements growing more confident with each step. By the time he reached the center of the field, he broke into a gallop, his mane flowing in the wind. Keanu watched, his chest tightening with emotion. This was the Apollo he remembered, a horse full of life and fire, running as though the weight of the world had been lifted from his shoulders. As the sun set, casting the ranch in warm hues of orange and pink, Keanu sat by the paddock fence, watching Apollo graze peacefully. James joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You did it," James said quietly. Keanu shook his head. "We did it, and so did he. Apollo, he's the real fighter here." James nodded, his gaze fixed on the Mustang. "What about Jack Hendrick? Have the authorities followed up?" Keanu's jaw tightened. "They're building a case, but it's not moving fast enough. I'm not letting this slide. He's going to answer for what he did, not just to Apollo, but to every animal he's ever harmed." James placed a reassuring hand on Keanu's shoulder. "You've got everyone on your side. Jack doesn't stand a chance." Keanu's eyes remained on Apollo. "This isn't just about justice. It's about making sure no one else has to go through what Apollo did." As the stars began to emerge, Keanu made a silent vow. He would fight not only for Apollo, but for every animal that needed a voice. Together, they had already overcome so much, and their journey was far from over. The quiet serenity of the ranch was a stark contrast to the storm brewing elsewhere. While Apollo was settling back into his new life of peace, Keanu Reeves was far from done. The memory of Jack Hendrick's cruelty haunted him, and the thought of other animals suffering under the farmer's hand pushed him to action. Early one morning, Keanu sat in his study, poring over documents provided by the Animal Rescue Organization. A legal advisor had reached out, offering assistance in building a strong case against Jack. The evidence was damning: photos, witness statements, and Apollo's veterinary records all pointed to years of neglect and abuse. James entered the room, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. "You've been at this all night," he said, placing the cup on the desk. "Any progress?" Keanu sighed, rubbing his temples. "There's enough here to bury him, but the wheels of justice turn slowly. We need more witnesses, more people willing to testify." James hesitated before speaking. "You know the delivery driver who reported Jack? He might be willing to help. He saw it firsthand." Keanu's eyes lit up. "Do you know how to contact him?" James nodded. "I'll get his number." That afternoon, Keanu made the call. The delivery driver, whose name was Liam, was hesitant at first. "I've already done my part by reporting him," Liam said, his voice uncertain. "Jack's not someone you want to mess with." I understand your hesitation, Keanu replied, his tone calm but firm. But this isn't just about Apollo. It's about every animal that suffered because of him. Your voice could make all the difference. There was a long pause before Liam spoke again. All right, I'll help. But only if it's safe. Keanu's relief was palpable. Thank you, Liam. You won't regret this. Meanwhile, Apollo's recovery continued to inspire those around him. The Mustang had regained much of his strength. His once dull coat now gleamed in the sunlight. Keanu spent hours with him each day, reinforcing their bond through gentle rides and quiet moments in the paddock. One evening, as Keanu brushed Apollo's mane, James approached with an update. Liam agreed to meet with the legal team. They're setting up a formal deposition. Keanu nodded, his focus on Apollo. Good. The more pressure we apply, the harder it'll be for Jack to escape accountability. James hesitated. What if Jack retaliates? He's got a lot of influence in town. Keanu's jaw tightened. Let him try. I won't back down. A week later, the legal team submitted their findings to the authorities, who initiated formal charges against Jack Hendrick. News of the case spread quickly, drawing attention from animal welfare organizations and local activists. The story of Apollo's rescue, combined with Jack's history of abuse, sparked public outrage. Protests were organized outside Jack's farm, with signs reading "Justice for Apollo" and "End Animal Cruelty." The once quiet rural community was now at the center of a movement, and Keanu's involvement brought even more attention. One afternoon, a reporter arrived at the ranch, hoping to interview Keanu about the case. You've become the face of this fight, the reporter said. What's driving you to take such a strong stand? Keanu paused, his gaze drifting to Apollo grazing peacefully in the distance. It's not about me, he said simply. It's about him and every other animal that deserves a voice. As the case moved toward trial, Jack's arrogance began to waver. Faced with mounting evidence and public pressure, he attempted to negotiate a plea deal. But Keanu was resolute. He needs to face the full weight of the law, he told the legal team. Anything less would be an injustice. The trial date was set, and Keanu prepared to testify on Apollo's behalf. He knew the road ahead would be challenging, but he was ready. Apollo's survival had proven one thing: even in the face of unimaginable cruelty, resilience and compassion could triumph. As the sun set over the ranch, Keanu stood by the paddock fence, watching Apollo gallop freely. The fight for justice wasn't over, but in that moment, he felt a quiet sense of hope. Together, they had already overcome so much, and they weren't done yet. The day of the trial arrived, and the small courtroom buzzed with quiet anticipation. Journalists filled the gallery, their cameras clicking as Keanu Reeves entered. His presence commanding yet humble. The spotlight was unavoidable, but for Keanu, this wasn't about fame. It was about justice for Apollo and every animal that had suffered under Jack Hendrick. Jack sat at the defense table, his usual arrogance now tempered by the weight of the evidence against him. His lawyer whispered hurriedly in his ear, but Jack's clenched jaw betrayed his frustration. He hadn't expected the case to escalate this far, and certainly not with Keanu Reeves leading the charge. Keanu took the stand, his calm demeanor unshaken, even as the defense attempted to downplay Apollo's suffering. Mr. Reeves, the defense attorney began, you've been very vocal about this case. Isn't it true that your involvement has brought undue media attention to my client? Keanu's gaze was steady. The media isn't the issue here. The issue is the documented abuse of an innocent animal. The attorney smirked. You're an actor, Mr. Reeves. Isn't it possible you're exaggerating for dramatic effect? Keanu leaned forward, slightly, his voice firm but composed. I don't need to exaggerate. The photos, the veterinary reports, and the witness testimony speak for themselves. This isn't a script, it's reality. The courtroom was silent as his words hung in the air. Even the judge seemed moved by the sincerity in Keanu's voice. Liam, the delivery driver who had initially reported Jack, was the next to testify. Nervous, but determined, he recounted the day he witnessed the abuse. I saw him use a whip on the Mustang over and over, Liam said, his voice shaking. The horse was tied so tight it could barely move. I knew I had to do something. The defense attempted to discredit Liam, questioning his motives and reliability, but his testimony remained steadfast. The photographs he had taken served as irrefutable evidence, showing Apollo's frail condition and the scars on his body. Dr. Emily Carter also took the stand, providing detailed accounts of Apollo's injuries and his miraculous recovery. "This horse was on the brink of death when he arrived at our clinic," she said. "The level of neglect and abuse he endured was severe. It's a miracle he survived." As the trial progressed, Jack's lawyer tried to paint him as a misunderstood farmer with good intentions, but the weight of the evidence was overwhelming. Witness after witness testified against him, from former employees who had seen his cruelty firsthand to neighbors who had long suspected his mistreatment of animals. Keanu's closing statement was a heartfelt plea for accountability. "Apollo is just one example of what happens when we turn a blind eye to cruelty," he said. "Animals can't speak for themselves, but we can." This trial isn't just about punishing Jack Hendrick. It's about sending a message that abuse won't be tolerated. The jury deliberated for hours, the tension palpable as everyone awaited the verdict. Finally, the foreperson stood, clearing her throat. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Jack Hendrick, guilty on all charges." A wave of relief washed over the courtroom. Keanu closed his eyes briefly, a small smile breaking through his otherwise stoic expression. Justice had been served, not just for Apollo, but for every animal that deserves a life free from pain and fear. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Keanu, eager for a statement. He paused on the steps, his voice steady as he addressed the crowd. "Today, justice was served not just for Apollo, but for every animal that deserves a life free from pain and fear. This is only the beginning. We must continue to speak up to protect those who can't protect themselves." As Keanu returned to the ranch that evening, the weight of the trial lifted from his shoulders. He found Apollo in the paddock, grazing peacefully under the fading light. Walking to the fence, Keanu rested his arms on the rail, watching the Mustang move with a freedom that had once seemed impossible. "We did it, boy," he said softly. Apollo looked up, his ears flicking forward as if he understood. The fight for justice was over, but their journey together would continue, a story of resilience, hope, and the unbreakable bond between a man and his horse. The ranch was quiet in the early morning light, the sky painted in soft hues of gold and lavender. Apollo trotted across the paddock, his movements fluid and confident. Each day brought signs of his full recovery, and the once broken Mustang now carried himself with a pride that reflected his newfound freedom. Keanu Reeves leaned against the paddock fence, a steaming cup of coffee in hand. The weight of the trial and months of uncertainty had finally lifted. Watching Apollo run freely was a reminder of why he had fought so hard, not just for this one horse but for every animal that deserved kindness and care. In the weeks following the trial, the ranch had become a hub of activity. Animal welfare advocates and organizations reached out to Keanu, inspired by his dedication to Apollo's rescue and justice. Donations poured in, and plans were underway to expand the ranch into a sanctuary for abused and neglected horses. James, ever the practical caretaker, approached Keanu one afternoon with a clipboard in hand. "We've got the blueprints for the new paddocks," he said, handing them over. "With this expansion, we'll be able to take in at least 20 more horses." Keanu studied the plans, a small smile forming on his lips. "This is just the beginning," he said. "Every horse that comes here will get a second chance." Apollo had become more than just a survivor. He was a symbol of resilience. Visitors often came to the ranch to hear his story, their faces lighting up when they saw him gallop across the fields. Keanu took the time to share the journey they had been on, always emphasizing the importance of advocacy and compassion. One such visitor was a young boy named Ben, who had been struggling with confidence after recovering from a serious illness. His parents had brought him to the ranch, hoping the experience would inspire him. When Ben met Apollo, something shifted. The boy reached out hesitantly, his small hand brushing the Mustang's neck. Apollo stood perfectly still, his gentle presence easing Ben's nerves. Keanu knelt beside him. "Apollo's a fighter, just like you," he said softly. "He taught me that no matter how tough things get, we can always find the strength to keep going." Ben smiled, his eyes shining with hope. Do you think I could be strong like him? Keanu placed a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder. I know you can. As the ranch grew, so did the impact of Apollo's story. News outlets picked up updates, and a documentary team approached Keanu with the idea of chronicling the journey. At first, Keanu hesitated, wary of turning something so personal into a public spectacle. But after discussing it with James and the animal welfare organizations, he saw the potential to inspire change on a larger scale. The documentary, titled The Spirit of Apollo, premiered months later to widespread acclaim. It not only highlighted the resilience of one horse, but also shed light on the systemic issues surrounding animal cruelty. The proceeds were funneled directly into the sanctuary, allowing it to expand even further. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Keanu sat by the paddock fence, watching Apollo graze. James joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. You've done something incredible here, James said, his voice filled with admiration. Keanu shook his head. We did this, and so did he. Apollo, he's the one who showed us what's possible. James nodded, his gaze following Apollo's graceful movements. What's next? Keanu smiled faintly. We keep going for every horse out there waiting for someone to care. The ranch became a beacon of hope, not just for horses, but for people who believed in the power of second chances. Apollo's journey from the brink of despair to a life of freedom was a testament to the unbreakable bond between humans and animals, and a reminder that compassion and resilience could change the world. As the stars emerged in the night sky, Keanu stood by the fence, a quiet sense of fulfillment washing over him. Apollo trotted over, resting his head on Keanu's shoulder. At that moment, no words were needed. Their journey had been long and arduous, but they had found their way together. Apollo's journey from despair to freedom is a reminder of the strength found in resilience and the power of compassion. It's not just about one Mustang. It's about the countless animals waiting for someone to step up, fight for them, and give them the second chance they deserve. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel, like this video, and share it with someone who believes in the power of hope and second chances. Together, we can raise awareness, inspire change, and create a world where every animal gets the care and love they deserve. Thank you for watching, and remember, every act of kindness, no matter how small, can make a difference.